I have the pleasure today of being joined by Nik Jain. Now, Nik is the Regional Director and Chief Technology Officer for Solution Engineering for Australia and New Zealand at Dynatrace. That's a mouthful. Nik, great to see you. Thanks so much for making time to catch up with me.
Thanks for having me, Dez.
Absolute pleasure. So, before we dive into an amazing conversation today, for our audience, just to set the scene, we're going to have a great conversation with Nik around his role, a little bit of a background on himself and how he came to this exciting role and joined Dynatrace. We're looking at a bit of a 30,000 foot overview of Dynatrace, the organization, and then we'll dive into a few more specifics around some of the new exciting challenges they're helping clients face, particularly with the emerging technologies like AI and generative AI and agentic AI and all those things. We'll also be talking about a exciting new report that's available, which I won't steal the thunder from Nik of, but there's an exciting new free download of a report that Dynatrace have put out that you can get a hands on directly from their website. We'll be talking about their sponsorship of BeerOps and the upcoming events. And then we'll be getting some advice from Nik, as he's a consummate professional in this space, around how he thinks people should get the most out of these events and how to prepare. And we'll also talk about what these events bring to the table for an organization like Dynatrace. And then we'll briefly wrap up with some details on where you can get the latest and greatest news from Dynatrace, the company, and indeed follow Dynatrace and Nik on digital social platforms. Nik, I wonder if you could maybe just kick us off with a little brief 30,000 foot get to know you, as a little bit of background on yourself and how you came to this exciting role.
Thanks, Dez. Really appreciate the intro. So, in terms of my role at Dynatrace, I think the main part I'd like to share is how did I find myself this role in the first place? I've got a background in software development. As a part of that role, we used to build collection management systems, loan origination systems. And at the end of each release or feature, uh, we used to have that dreadful moment on a Monday as I used to walk into the floor. Imagine this is me walking onto the floor, and there are a couple of eyeballs that I can feel even though I'm not directly looking at them. And this is the time when we used to write code, burn them on a DVD, and give them to the release teams, and something has gone wrong. Um, so that was the time when I got curious about, making sure that these releases are at high quality, they're secure, and I built what could be called as an MVP for observability tools. Little I knew back then that there are first-class platforms like Dynatrace that do this day in, day out in a much more sophisticated way. So I went through the typical journey of, a decade and a bit of consulting roles, architecture roles, and roughly 5 years ago, I joined Dynatrace as the regional director and also as a local CTO for ANZ. So that's a little bit about my journey and how did I find this role at Dynatrace.
Fantastic. What's a day in the life like for you in your role? Everybody thinks they know what people's job titles mean, but regional director for and chief technology officer for solution engineering there at Dynatrace for the ANZ market. What is a day in the life of Nik Jain like when you're working, I guess, with one foot in the customer side of things and one foot inside the organization?
That's spot on, exactly as you said. So there is one foot on the customer side. There is a second foot inside the organization, making sure we're strategically looking at the demand for next year and the year after and planning the resourcing, the customer engagement strategy. What resources are we going to need? Are there new roles that need to be introduced? But there's a lot of travel involved. So I focus on what can be called as Dynatrace 10. So these are our top customers, and the list often changes depending on where there's demand coming in from. But I travel between Melbourne, Sydney, Canberra, um, other parts of ANZ region as well, Auckland, Wellington, Brisbane, if not other places. And this is primarily focused on meeting with customers or supporting a marketing event where we can obsess with customer problems and speak to how we can solve these problems, but often also leading strategic demos or customer vision mapping and roadmap discussions. Often, many of these customers want to converge our Dynatrace roadmap with their customer roadmap. So making sure we're able to align those two things. Now, it's not just limited to working with customers. We've got a fantastic portfolio of strategic partners and boutique partners. So we spend a lot of time, and I personally spend a lot of time ensuring these partners are supported. They're on a path of excellence, and together we can find success between our two organizations. So that's professionally speaking what I do. Um, I think I'll park the personal side
Sure.
for this recording.
We'll have you back another day for a full-length podcast conversation to get to know you and a bit of your
Yeah.
background because you have got an amazing career path. Really appreciate the insights there. When I think about Dynatrace as an organization, I'm old enough to remember them sort of appearing on the scene back in around 2005, I think it was, when they popped up in Linz in Austria, I think it was from memory. And back then they were sort of one of these exciting new, I guess, startups and prominent players in what would back then be cloud monitoring technologies, and where they sort of started out in observation tools for the likes of Java apps, and then I think they even pushed into .NET and a range of other cloud environments and provisioning and so forth. But these days, when I think of the organization, you've got a very broad range of capabilities and offerings, whether it's core infrastructure and observability. It's and now including AI, of course. You've always done log and threat observability, and even business solutions and systems of observation now, which I was very interested to learn more about because I'd sort of not seen that emerge as mature as it is. And then you've got your traditional application stuff, and then some of the digital experience things, applications, software delivery. When you sort of think about where Dynatrace has come from and where it is today now, is a dramatically more incredible company now more than ever. When you walk into a room and grab a whiteboard marker and start to diagram it up for a room of CEOs, how do you describe Dynatrace in its current form today?
Yeah, that's a fantastic, walk down the memory lane. And obviously, a lot has changed, as you rightly pointed out. Um, if if I'm walking into a room full of customer executives, typically we want to start with their problems, their initiatives, their strategies. What are the barriers to success? Once we're past that phase, as we start to introduce Dynatrace, the first key part is with the help of Dynatrace platform, we can help our customers understand their business and their customer experience like never before. Now, to your point, there is a lot that goes into the how part. How do we do that? Um, but without boring, the audience that is going to be listening or are listening to our chat today, I want to give this one liner. How do we do it? We put these customers on a path of autonomous business operations. And the value of that is for different types of team members. So this is your IT support or your modern site reliability engineering or modern operations teams that also support AI ops. They can auto remediate incidents. Then when it comes to security teams, they can auto secure cloud and hybrid workloads. And when it comes to, there are a lot of executives right now, and particularly in today's market, they're focusing on ensuring that they are continually optimizing cost and the operating cost. They're making their people more efficient. So for them, we also support auto optimization, whether it's cloud spend or teams running these workloads so that customers can just get their transactions done and get on with their lives. So those are some of the key use cases we deliver. We have been in the artificial intelligence operation space for about 10 years and more. And it's not a buzzword we picked up as soon as generative AI came to life. So yeah, that's a
Yeah,
brief
yeah.
introduction into Dynatrace and what we are all about.
Fantastic. Yes, I've personally seen Dynatrace across a whole range of industries, whether it's financial services, education, software and digital spaces, public sector, state and federal government. I've even seen councils running your tools in their infrastructure monitoring, particularly some of the utilities, and then you're all across the retail e-commerce space. And as you said, AI is not a new thing to you guys. You've been doing machine learning and a whole bunch of other intelligence inside there, particularly with some of your log monitoring and alert capture and a mixture of sentiment analysis and also other risk profiles and mapping, vulnerabilities. So it's something that you guys effectively since 2025 have written the book on, which we're about to pivot to in a minute for an available new ebook. But AI is, as of 2023, has got a whole new look and feel when OpenAI sort of made it available to talk to. And I know now a lot of people are getting that generative AI capability across all of your offerings. Before we dive into your sponsorship of BeerOps, which I'm very excited to talk about, you have some exciting news with regard to a new ebook or report that's just come out with regard to what you guys are doing in your industry. I wonder if you can give us a little insight into that. We can sort of talk about where people can get it.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on this. The State of Observability report and ebook, it's very practitioner focused, and it's also got segments to how executives can learn from this ebook and modernize their operations, but also put the right process, the right funding, and right technologies that their people can drive. And these are practitioners that actually make things happen. Um, but part one of this book is all focused on the change we are seeing in the current climate. A lot of AI focus, and rightly so, is happening. Some companies are questioning the return on investment, but I think it's too early. It's like, when we move from horses to cars, in the first year, uh, we were not talking about the ROI of cars. In the first year, we were talking about the joy of this new type of mode of transport. So you take that and apply that to AI. What this ebook talks about is the evolving AI adoption space. What are companies doing? How are they building these AI workloads? How is that changing the game of observing these workloads, these AI native, cloud native workloads? And then there is a natural convergence that will take place between observability, automation, application security, and even business analytics. We're able to deliver those things through our platform. But generically, this report also speaks to why that convergence is happening, regardless of a platform like Dynatrace. And then finally, we are talking about the process part and how use cases like business observability and sustainability, tracking carbon emission, optimizing your cloud workloads for those use cases so that you're not just able to look into IT observability, but joined IT observability with business analytics in a correlated fashion. So that's the other section this ebook covers. I think it's a fantastic read, even for a Dynatrace native like me. And the objective is not to talk about Dynatrace, but to talk about what's happening in the marketplace and share all those insights with practitioners and execs.
I like that. Yes, you summarized that very well earlier when you sort of talked about your approach to walking into a room full of decision makers, and you initially looked at the sorts of challenges they're facing and what sort of problems they're trying to solve before you delved into any of the sort of the potential solutioning, which is, for me, is certainly from my background, that's always been a case of, don't solution something until you understand the problem. Otherwise, you're going to miss it big time. I really like the one-liner, though, at the risk of sounding sycophantic. I love the tag on the front page, which I'm going to quote for you, which is quote unquote the emerging control plane for AI transformation. I think that is a really, really great one line. It should be on a t-shirt somewhere. I made some notes if I can just quickly run through them for our audience around the 6 chapters in this, because I think this is a must read. It's a free download. You can just pop in an email address, grab it, click on it, and get the PDF. I also recommend that not only do you actually read it, but share it with your team. If you're like me, you might even kill a few trees and just print it and actually scribble notes on it and start passing it around. Get a few people to put some notes through it to see what you all want to talk about, and then have a session around why you may need to spend some time with Dynatrace to look at it. The actual initial walkthrough in the introduction, I won't go through, but the first chapter in particular was just all around AI adoption across the enterprise. And I think it was a really good way just to set the scene for what are organizations facing now. The second chapter is around observability, and particularly in the context of the era of AI, which you just touched on. And I think that is also highly critical. People don't seem to be having a conversation around this. They're just deploying things. They've got Copilot from Office 365 being deployed natively. They've got Gemini from Google if they're a workspace client. They're using third-party tools like Perplexity and of course ChatGPT, which is a big one. And often no one really knows where it's being used, what it's being used on, what access and what controls, what data. We've had some horror stories recently where we won't name them, but a particular state government uploaded an entire list of 3,000 people who are flood victims in a spreadsheet into ChatGPT to do some work with it, not realizing what sort of data breach that was. And you cannot remove that data from these models. It's in there, it's effectively self-training. Chapter 3 was just around trust and transparency, and I think that's a no-brainer, but that's definitely something your CISO should be looking at, as well as your chief data officers and your operational officers. Chapter 4 was around the convergence, as you mentioned, around not just observability of your overall systems and application security, but the DevOps piece as well, which we'll talk about the event coming up. Chapter 5, overcoming sustainability barriers. That one was actually interesting. It opened my mind to a range of things I hadn't really considered when I thought about what you guys do at Dynatrace with observability. More and more now, I think sustainability is something that just needs to be monitored and eventually will have to be reported on, as we already do with profitability with various things. Chapter 6, the rise of business observability as an overall thing. Again, this is a really big topic that should be making its way into the boardrooms, in my view, and that is that what can we see across the organization and what can companies like Dynatrace help us delve into more detail of and potentially even put some real-time analytics and alerts and reports on. There's a great conclusion that sort of goes into what will effectively be the mandate for observability in the age of AI eventually. I think we're going to have a legal requirement. We certainly have it from a data protection point of view already around the world. But I think we're going to see a whole range of people, particularly in Australia with the Australian Stock Exchange or ASX, going to have the Australian Prudential Regulatory Association, APRA, and we're going to have ASIC, the organization that you have to even register companies through. They're all going to take an interest on where observability is going to be possible and potentially required in AI. And there's a really great data summary in the around global data summary and details in the appendix. A must read. Wherever you see this, whether it's on our YouTube channel or on all the digital social platforms, we will have links to this report, to Dynatrace's website, and certainly to Nik's professional profile, and of course BeerOps.io, where we'd like you to click and register immediately. Nik, congratulations on your sponsorship, by the way, of the BeerOps events. I'm really keen to get your thoughts. I mean, you do a lot of local events, you do global events, you do industry events, you've got your own events as Dynatrace as an organization, you do community things. When we think about BeerOps and the subsequent ExecOps sister event, they're effectively Australia's largest tech networking conference, a place where you can go and meet all kinds of birds of feather in different walks in life. And I love that whole inclusion piece. You know, obviously DEI is a big part of it, but inclusivity for me with BeerOps in particular, which I'm keen to get your thoughts on, is all age brackets, all backgrounds, all different industries and technologies. Could be somebody that's a graduate all the way to a senior executive, or maybe even somebody like yourself who's a chief technology officer for a region. What do events like BeerOps bring to the table for an organization like Dynatrace?
Oh, you already mentioned some of the key reasons. It's the largest tech event, but beyond that, if you think about any organization that wants to transform and improve, it needs platoons and platoons of executioners. These are people who obsess with the problem and they solve these problems day in, day out. What I particularly find exciting about BeerOps is the fact that you've got such a good cohort of site reliability engineers, operational support folks, developers, release engineers, testers. These are not just traditional folks, but folks who've embraced the promise of Gen AI. And on top of that, you've also got a mix of audiences and stakeholders there in ExecOps, which is where CTOs, my counterparts, CDOs, CIOs, head of engineering may want to partake and also understand what's out there, what's catching traction, how can you break down complex problems, what is the process around that, what technologies can be applied to that, how do you enable your people. So I think it's a fantastic community event, and I like the very subtle and casual undertone to it, which is beer plus operations.
Yep.
And I think that's a phenomenal combination. Doesn't matter what role you've got. If you're combining those two things and you're obsessing with a problem, you're bound to get to the other side in a positive fashion. Jokes aside, I personally have seen this event grow from a couple of hundred into thousands. And I'm super excited that Dynatrace is continuing to invest into BeerOps year over year. And hopefully, I'll be in Sydney event next Tuesday. So I'm super pumped about being there in person.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'll certainly be looking for it. Yeah, I've always, tracking the event over the last sort of what is now 11 years, which is an amazing success story for Stephen Wallace and his amazing team and co-founder. I've always seen it as from a sponsorship point of view, at the risk of sounding like I'm a sales pitch, that for every dollar you put into these sorts of events like BeerOps and ExecOps, you're going to get $1,000 back for every single opportunity or more, because you're meeting so many key decision makers, and often it could be a new graduate taking an initiative as a trial or proof of concept within the organization that just pops and it comes out of nowhere, and you're like, whoa, where did that happen? Or it could be a very large organization, as you said, in the exec ops, who are just coming to hear you talk about what you can offer because they already have a pain point or a buying decision, an investment requirement, or a merger and acquisition they've got to deal with, and they're just looking for the right people to help them as a business part to solve problems. On the other side of the coin, I want to just very briefly, you yourself have attended so many of these amazing events. I wonder if you could just very briefly share some thoughts and advice and insights around sort of how you approach events like this as an attendee, so that all the attendees and folk of register come along at both the Melbourne event this week and also next week yourselves there in Sydney. What are the best ways that you've found to get the most out of these types of events with your planning, your prep beforehand, and then also on the day itself?
Yeah, I that's a great question. I typically go in with an open mind, and my objective is I don't have any KPIs per se going into events like these, but my objective is to meet as many people as possible, and particularly ensure they're from different backgrounds, different personas, and different companies. And so many times I get these left field tips on how to do something in a better fashion, in a more practical fashion for today's time. So I'd just say keep it casual, keep an open mind, and try and meet as many people as possible. Um, the other thing, there are a lot of vendor booths at these events. I particularly feel that there is a lot of pressure on these vendors to project and present themselves in the best possible light, and they lead with customer value. So typically, I keep a few paper or two on me. Uh, you mentioned something around killing trees, but as long as you put it to productive use and you're able to recycle, I think it's all good
Absolutely.
approach. So I take a note on what these customer value use cases are, where some of these use cases were applied, and I often add these people on LinkedIn for follow up later, so
Yep.
I can have a more productive one-on-one discussion after what I commonly call as speed dating. It ends up being like speed dating, but you want to make sure anything that resonates with you, you're able to spend more productive one-on-one time.
I like that. That's a great idea. I should qualify two things. One, even though BeerOps and ExecOps fall under the BeerOps banner, there are plenty of non-alcoholic drinks. If you like me and don't drink alcohol, there's plenty of great food, plenty of various beverages. It isn't just all beer, but yes, it is a wonderful thing. And regarding my killing trees, I consider printing things the most perfect form of carbon sequestration. So when I get a hard time for printing things, I'm like, look, I'm sequestering carbon. What are you complaining about? But my piece of paper never goes flat. So if I'm standing in front of you, I'm about to have a conversation, I've got some notes. There's no chance that this thing needs a recharge before I can have a conversation with you, which is unbeatable when you've got the world of smartphones going flat. I wonder if you could wrap us up with some details around, and congratulations on supporting the overall initiative and the event, by the way. It's amazing when organizations like yourselves are at Dynatrace and you, Nick, championing the ongoing investment and support of these events, because this is the only way they'll survive, is continued investment from sponsors and partners to work with them. And also, it's a great part of the value add, which is having you there. People can come and meet you, meet your team, stand at your booth, have conversations, and as you said, maybe connect on LinkedIn or at least follow you and have an ongoing conversation post-event around how you can help them with some of their pain points and other technology challenges. I wonder if you could wrap us up with a little insight around or some advice around the best way to stay up to date with what's happening at Dynatrace, with yourself professionally, and some of the places that people can sort of get the latest and greatest news regularly, and any other resources you've got available they can get some value from, either leading up to the event or post the event, or maybe people are just tuning in who can't for some reason attend the events but want to be part of that conversation.
Yeah, I'll break it up in two segments, uh, particularly for executive audiences. We've got a microsite on dynatrace.com, which is Dynatrace for executives. It speaks to business value, it speaks to latest trend, it's got a lot of financial data, and typically we openly share the demographics and the global data summary for these use cases. I'd also recommend taking a look at Des, what you mentioned, the state of observability report for executives, just to get an idea on where the scene is progressing towards. For developer audiences, for practitioners, however, I'd recommend the best place will be our YouTube channel. It's got a lot of cool content on how do you do XYZ use cases? How do you bring agentic AI based automation to life? That's a really good example. And many people are have their focus from a practitioner perspective on providing and enabling meaningful use cases in that area. So YouTube channel is great. And if you belong to the Gen Z category, I'm not one of them. Des, I suppose you're
No,
not.
I'm definitely not, my
Yeah.
friend.
So Instagram
Yep,
channel also
yep.
has shorts where we quickly talk about customer stories, use cases, and different stakeholders and persona. I think if you like rapid content, that's your jam.
I love that. Look, I'm going to be honest and say that I know plenty of CEOs like myself who have migrated to new formats and digital format, not the brain rot side of it, but the very fast, rapid learning stuff. That is actually where we keep up to date. I even caught myself the other day tuning into the news on Instagram and TikTok Reels because that's where all the channels are talking. Nik, fantastic to catch up with you. Thanks so much for making time. Some really great insights into you and your role and what a day in the life of your sort of day to day with regard to not just what you're doing at Dynatrace, but certainly what you're doing there as regional director and chief technology officer for solution engineering for Australia and New Zealand at Dynatrace. Great to get a bit more of an up-to-date look at what Dynatrace is doing currently and some of the amazing things, certainly around the emerging tech, I guess, emergence and what's the word I'm looking for? Disruption of businesses now with AI in a positive way. And again, congratulations on your continued support of the BeerOps community. It's really exciting. I know myself and others are going to be looking forward to meeting you at the event, particularly in Sydney. In the meantime, safe travels. For our audience, we will definitely have details wherever you see this, whether it's on our YouTube channel or our Vidion.com channel or any of the digital social platforms, and certainly probably some of the shorts that we'll publish. We'll have links everywhere to the beerops.io website where we'd like to go and learn about all the upcoming events, Melbourne and Sydney on the 22nd and 28th of October. We'd like you to make sure you bookmark the dynatrace.com website. Make sure you follow Nik and the company profiles, keep up to date. And as Nik said, there's some great resources there, but I've actually managed to drink 2 cups of coffee, Nik, just to wrap out on this. You've got some amazing resources on your website, right in the middle on the top menu resources. Not only have you got some great blogs and podcasts and webinars, but you've got some really great customer stories that I found interesting that I think will speak directly to the audience and some of the types of peer organizations that have got the same problems they have. You've also got training and certifications that I think is well and truly worth our audience, particularly for the BeerOps community, to get across some amazing stuff there where you can, build out your own career path, build out your own learning. And then there's a whole space around, I think you called a deeper dive around your documentation, your overall community, and a thing called Dynatrace Hub, which is well and truly worth diving into, but I won't give too much away. But yeah, dynatrace.com, it'll be linked wherever you see this. Jump on all those amazing resources. And as Nik said, there's an Instagram feed with some great updates. There's a YouTube channel with stuff that you really need to be looking at and subscribing to. And more importantly, register for BeerOps coming up in either Melbourne, Sydney, your local city, and get along and meet the team from Dynatrace and certainly Nik in person. Nik, we'll have you back again soon to talk more in detail, as you said, but in the meantime, safe travels. Really appreciate your time, and thanks for all the great insights leading up to your BeerOps sponsorship.
Thanks, Des.
Absolute pleasure. Cheers.